Hi, it's Tash from Foxes and Vampires Tarot, and today I'm finally doing a second installment on my Tarot and Psychology series, so super excited. And today I've pulled the Five of Cups, and the psychology theory that goes in my mind with the Five of Cups is gratitude. And I mentioned in my first video in this series that the point of this is just to enhance the understanding of the cards. So because I've studied psychology, when I see particular cards, I tend to link them to psychological theory. And it doesn't mean that that's the only way of reading that card, but I find that it just adds that extra depth. And particularly if you're using the cards for self-development or any kind of self-work, then it's really helpful to think about psychological theory in relation to the tarot cards. And so the Five of Cups for me is always gratitude. And even though it's that kind of despair, to me it's about what you choose to focus on. And so the idea of gratitude, really, if we have to define gratitude, it's really about recognizing and affirming the good in our lives. And so it's not necessarily thinking about the most amazing things that happen, but it's just recognizing those little things that bring us joy or that just go right each day. And gratitude has been the focus of psychology for quite some time, ever since the development of positive psychology. And I mentioned positive psychology in my previous video on learned helplessness, and that Martin Seligman is considered the founder of positive psychology. And he, of course, has also done a lot of research on gratitude. And there have been so many research studies on this, because the idea of positive psychology is that instead of focusing on mental illness, we focus on mental health. And so it's not just about curing a disease, it's about actually trying to prevent it and trying to boost people up and really, I guess, emphasize their protective factors so that they're less likely to succumb to any problems. And so it's a great field to work in. And so I'll give you a sense of what research has shown to be the benefits of gratitude. And so physical health is one of them. There have been a number of studies that have shown that people who engage in regular gratitude tend to sleep better, tend to have less fatigue, and even have less inflammation. And so there are some promising studies that show that it can definitely play a role in things like reducing the impact of things like chronic disease. And it's definitely not a cure, but it's just improving life that little bit more. Most of the research, though, has been on the psychological impacts of gratitude. And a lot of these studies basically will have participants spend, say, like a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks writing down things that they're grateful for each day, so sort of keeping some sort of gratitude journal. And so one study, for example, had participants do it for 14 days, and then they had a control group that did not do gratitude. So they would be just writing everything that happened on that day, so not just focusing on the things they were grateful for. And so this study was actually done last year by Cunha, Palanda, and Rephold. And they actually found that keeping gratitude lists increased positive emotions, reduced negative emotions, and reduced depressive symptoms in the group that was participating in that. And there was absolutely none of that happening in the control group, with the people who weren't participating in gratitude. In a similar vein, there was another study about O'Leary and Dockeray, 2015, where they just got people to do an online gratitude exercise. It was basically just a gratitude diary 4 times a week for 3 weeks, and they found that there were lasting effects in stress reduction. So that's really cool. Seligman, as I mentioned, I would mention him again. He came up with this 3 things a day, like 3 good things. And so basically you just list 3 things you're grateful for. And he found that this actually increased subjective happiness in participants for over 6 months. So when they checked back with people in 6 months' time, the effects were still there. And that's from 1 week of gratitude. And so it's super powerful. And the other thing is, it does actually seem to have social benefits as well. And it seems to strengthen relationships, which makes total sense because, of course, if we are showing gratitude to people, then we're going to really value add to those relationships. And it also seems to lead to reciprocal altruism is what they call it. So it's the idea that if you show gratitude to other people, then they are more likely to do things for you, and they're more likely to show gratitude for you. And so it's very much associated with that pro-social behavior, so doing things for other people. And so how does it work? How does gratitude work? Like, it seems to be quite an effect for literally just writing down a couple things each day, right? And the theories there are that we tend to magnify what we focus on. And so our brains, basically, our neurons don't change much. So our nerve cells tend to stay quite, well, once we're an adult and once our brain's fully developed, they tend to stay quite stable. There appears to be a little bit more growth than we expected. But what really changes in our brain is the connection between nerve cells. And basically what happens is, if you practice something, those connections get stronger. If you don't do something, those connections get weakened because our brain focuses on what we need to survive. And clearly it says, okay, if you're keeping having to do something, then you're going to need to develop that, and you're going to need to maintain the ability to do that. And so it's the idea that if we are focusing only on the negative, though, the negative circuits in our brains are going to be strengthened. And so we're more likely to just immediately jump to the depressive thoughts, or we're more likely to get anxious because those circuits are so efficient. But what we can do is actually strengthen the positive circuits. And so by focusing on the good things, we're actually strengthening the other ones, which means that we're more likely to jump to the positive emotion than the negative emotion over time. So that's one of the theories about how that's actually happening. The other idea is that by being grateful, it means that we're broadening our perspective. Instead of just focusing on the problem solving, the bad things, we're seeing the big picture. And so we're actually more likely to be able to problem solve. And we're also more likely to recognize the good people in our lives, more likely to seek help, and things like that. Okay, so that's one theory as well. And there's also that suggestion that showing gratitude will also increase things like patience and humility and other virtues, because they just seem to go hand in hand. Now, some people seem to be more prone to gratitude and positive thinking in general. And so this seems to be a personality trait. However, the good news is if this is not you, it can be practiced. Okay, so as I said, those brain circuits can change. And so it's really just about practicing the skill until it becomes second nature. And some of the ways to do that, as I mentioned, Seligman's 3 good things. So literally have a gratitude journal, and each night just go through and list 3 good things that's happened to you that day. Could be anything like, oh, you know, the smell of rain was beautiful, or I had a really yummy fish taco, or I'm very grateful for my friends, or I'm very grateful for having a job, or I'm grateful for having a car to get me to my job. And so instead of focusing on the annoying things each day, you're focusing on some of the good things that happen. Another one is gratitude letters, and these can actually be sent to people or just written and kept in a journal as well. And the other one is mental subtraction. And so this is actually called the George Bailey effect after the It's a Wonderful Life. And it's the idea that we do the what if scenario. So people tend to focus a lot on the what if that bad thing had never happened, how good would my life be? And what you're doing is the opposite. You're kind of going, well, how would life be if a positive event had not happened? So if I did not have that friend in my life, or had not, suddenly got that job that helped me pay for things. And so what this does is it shifts the perspective, and it's looking at how valuable that event actually was, or that person really is, or that situation is. And so they're 3 techniques. All right, so getting on to the 5 of Cups now, because of course it is tarot and psychology. So the 5 of Cups really is looking at this little forlorn little figure, focusing on the cups that have overturned and ignoring the ones that are still standing. And so this is why I see it as gratitude. It's the idea that if we're focusing on the negative things that happen each day, we are losing the opportunity to focus on what is great in our lives. And okay, so the Tarot Grand Lux, once again, a very similar theme. It's focusing on the cups that are overturned, forgetting that these perfectly good cups there. And imagine the feeling of, instead of looking at what has been lost, you think about what you still have or what you gained. And it's not changing the situation, but what it is just shifting the perspective a bit. And even if you're not forgetting the overturned cups, it's the idea that at least look at the whole picture. Don't just focus on the negative. Do negative and positive at the very least. Because we can't ignore the bad things in life, but we can definitely make sure that the good things also feature. So light seers, once again, watching things go down the drain and failing to see all the beauty behind that, failing to see what still remains. In the Art Revival, this one, it's a really little sad card. And what I like about this one is it really is about that inner contemplation. And to me, once again, it's not saying that bad things haven't happened, but we can choose how much airtime to give it. Okay, and obviously there's things like grief and that you can't just ignore and deny, and you have to deal with it. But I think with everyday things in particular, we can choose how much to think about what has gone wrong. And just look around, look at the beauty around her. Like she's looking down into the darkness, but you've got all this beautiful greenery, you've got all this other great stuff happening. In the Shadowland, you have basically this figure's really ignoring past successes. And I think that's the thing of gratitude. Sometimes we focus on the very current loss or the very current failure. But what if we look at the big picture, and it's the idea that, well, actually, yeah, I failed at this, but think about all the things I've succeeded in. Think about all the things that have gone right in the past. The Everyday Witch Tarot as well. This one's a really good one because it's really that whole thing of, oh, I've tipped over some cups, everything's ruined. And this almost reminds me of children's tantrums. It's the, oh no, my lollipop fell on the floor, my life is over, everything's ruined, I don't care, my birthday's going to be rubbish now. And you're sort of forgetting that you actually have so much behind you. You still have all the other things that you can draw support and joy from. And I had to put the Housewives Tarot in here because it's that whole don't cry over spilt martinis. And once again, you can make a big drama of it, But the reality is, yeah, it's a spilled martini. You can't change that, can you? But look, you still got 2. And yeah, it's not 5, but you still have 2. And you still got those olives. And enjoy it. Be grateful for what you do have. The Deviant Moon. This one's quite an interesting take because it also shows the role that other people can have. And it's the idea that other people can also focus too much on others' shortcomings. And so this isn't just seeing the gratitude in your own life, but also seeing the good in other people. Instead of focusing on what they've done wrong, and obviously you don't ignore that and don't forget it and don't just gloss it over, but look at the big picture and also think about the good things they've done, the good things that they bring. And this is definitely points at a way of maybe improving this relationship. You know, she was able to kind of look and go, okay, well, you haven't spilled those 2. So yeah, it kind of sucks that you spilled these 3, but okay, you're not all bad. And let's focus on, okay, well, you haven't spilled these 2. So, okay, I'm not going to get as angry. Okay, so I think it's just perspective. And then finally, it's the Everyday Enchantment. It's one of my favorite decks of all time. And I chose this one because it really does show grief. It really shows the worst that life can bring you in a lot of ways. But I still think the message of this card ultimately is experience the grief, recognize that, but also recognize that there is support. You know, she's still got this loyal dog. You know, you've got the gratitude for what you had as well. So it's that idea that if you are in pain because you've lost something, it means that thing really had an impact on your life, a positive impact on your life. And so I guess it's focusing on what that brought you and the joy that brought you, rather than just focusing on the loss of after it's gone. And so ultimately, that's how I read the 5 of Cups. Yes, it's all that grief, but to me, whenever I see it, the message is, what am I not being grateful for? What am I missing in this picture? Am I being unnecessarily a sad sack? Am I being pessimistic? Is there a way of increasing my optimism? Is there a way of looking at this more broadly? And so I hope this was helpful. I'm having fun with these. It really gets me to think, and I enjoy sharing the way I interpret these cards. Thank you for watching. Take care.